So yeah, it was interesting embarking on that project, and and it was interesting what started to develop. That, like, I would never be the same again. I would never be the same again after that point. Um, so as far as I was concerned, my career as a filmmaker had already begun. I took everything seriously. Um, I took everything seriously. I was training myself in all aspects of being an independent filmmaker. I had, my first LLC, with my production company. I taught myself all of that, and teaching myself the business of running a company, and running a production company, and then taught myself how to direct. I'm reading, actor books. I'm studying acting so that I could be an effective director. I was a English creative writing major in school, so that was continuing to develop me as a writer. And I was teaching myself cinematography, because I already kind of had prior interest in, like, I kind of had played around in photography prior to college, and so it was a time, and filmmaking made me feel very alive. Creating made me feel very alive. I was always a creative person anyway. I was a very creative child, whether it was calligraphy or the time I got my first drum set, and getting into, like, playing musical instruments. I got into learning the recorder, and eventually that transitioned into learning the clarinet and the bass clarinet, and then the alto saxophone, and then the tenor saxophone, and the piano, a little bit of the piano. Um, and I was always doing, like, art projects. I would also doing stuff like science. We would do science experiments in school, and then I would go home and mimic the science experience at home. So I had science books, I had art books, I was drawing and drawing pads everywhere. I was doing oil pastels, um, building things. I used to build castles out of books. My dad we had bookshelves full of books, in our house always, which was really awesome and had a big impact on me. Um, I was also a sports kid, and my parents had us in sports as well. And I did love sports like basketball and baseball, bowling. I was on a bowling team for many years as a kid. But I was a creative kid more than anything, a skinny creative kid, and but I was quiet too. I was quiet, and I was excellent in school. Um, but not a lot of experience, like, socially, you know. And I was a military kid, moved around a lot. Um, I got used to, you know, dealing with new environments and having to start over, and but I wasn't the best at starting over socially, and times where I struck out, I struck um, where I did good socially. I could move and then move somewhere where I was doing not good socially. So I think in those times where I wasn't doing good socially, there were things that I didn't get to learn until later, in my adult, when I became an adult. So anyway, back to you know 2005 into 2006, and we're filming, and we're excited, and we're, like, loving on each other, and we're supporting each other, and we're just excited about this thing that we are, molding and shaping. And in 2006, I think that's when I submitted us to our first film festival, which was um, a festival called the Urban Media Makers Film Festival, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. And we actually got into it. We got into the festival, and they were going to do a screening for it. So we got the idea, um, that we were going to travel to Atlanta to attend this our first film festival, like as a cast and as a group. By this time, my co-director and co-producer Keisha, when she graduated in early 2006, that left. By then, Jared had been like reaching out to me. He was already acting for us in the show, right? He played a character named Darius, who was the angry son of a father who had just passed away, who after his father's passing, he finds out that he has a half brother that he never knew about. So that's the character that Jared played. So anyway, when Keisha graduated, she moved to Los Angeles. So that left me, and by that time, Jared had started kind of just like expressing interest in the behind the scenes side of what we were doing. And so before Keisha left, we had added Jared I extended an opportunity to him to join our producing team, even though I knew he didn't know anything about producing. But the kind of person I am, if somebody is interested and I have the ability to like nurture and mold and shape that, that's part of my nature, and I've done that hundreds of times in my career. And just in my life in general. That's one of the things that, it's something that I do and that I believe in doing. So anyway, so it was me, him and her producing for a while, and then she graduated and that left me and him. And that's when things got interesting. So when we met, of course, in 2005, when we first started the project, I was 23 and he was 25, and he had already graduated from FAMU, whereas I was still in school at Florida State. And he was working. He had a corporate job, and he owned a couple houses, and he just kind of like seemed like just had his life together. And I found that to be like a stable thing, especially when I got to the point where I asked him if he wanted to join us as producers. It was because of what he presented. He presented stability, he presented professionalism, and he presented like as a nice guy, and so I took a chance. I took a risk, like I always do, and because I was trusting myself, and we were going. And so then when Keisha was had moved, once she moved, which she was still kind of producing from afar, but she was starting her life and on the West Coast. Me and him were left to kind of manage what we were doing and keep it going. So I was kind of like teaching him a lot about producing and about film production and just all the behind the scenes elements of that, and he was excited, willing. He projected a really strong like work ethic. We started becoming friends, because in order to work together like that, you have to kind of start building like trust, and then your lives are starting to like kind of like merge. You're spending time in his world, he's spending time in your world, and you guys are embarking on this because you have this dream. You have this dream, this Hollywood dream, and I didn't think anything of it at the time. I was just focused on where we were headed. And anyway, we had our like I said, our first accomplishment, which was the film festival, and we actually all like traveled together to Atlanta, and everybody got hotels, and we attended the festival. There was some drama that we had in the cast because we had brought in a new cast member. She was a white girl, but she was kind of crazy, and she brought some drama, but it didn't shake anything up. We kind of like left her and the drama in Atlanta, and then got back, and we just kept moving forward. And he and I, as the producers now, we're trying to just figure out how could we use this series that we're working on, that we're producing, as leverage. Like, where can we take it? What can we do with it? So we were always trying to do that. So we were always researching and reading articles and studying the industry and passing articles back and forth. And I think by then he was even reading some producing books, about the industry. We were really just trying to like shore up our knowledge about what we were trying to do, and while we were doing that, I'm still writing, directing, editing, and trying to figure out what are we going to be doing with this stuff that we're filming, right? And what format are we doing this for? Like, what are we doing? Are we going to put out DVDs or what? And so it was just a busy time, but also exciting, but busy. And probably that's when I started experiencing like things like burnout and even depression at times, because I was financing this project myself, and I was a college student, and I was working full time. I was holding down a full-time job, and in school full time, and then I was doing this filmmaking thing full time, like 24/7. And so a lot of lessons were being learned with that kind of like lifestyle that I was living. I barely entertained a personal life, especially like my personal life was, so I guess I have to go into this subject. So I liked Tallahassee, generally speaking, but it's kind of like a conservative town, or at least at that time it was kind of like a conservative town, southern town. It is like considered like a small town, even though it's like the capital. And it was interesting going to school there. Definitely not where I even planned to go to school. I wanted to go to school in New York. I wanted to go to NYU or Syracuse, but my grandmother recommended Florida State because I had gone to high school in Florida, and she felt like Florida State's right up the road, and they have a film school, so that's why I chose Florida State. Tallahassee was very interesting, and in one particular way that ended up being like a prominent thing in my life and in my experience there during those years. Amongst the black population and in the black community at large, in the country at the time and in society at the time, the concept of black male sexuality was super controversial, and that was really the era of the down low. That was the era, right? And that term DL was like that was a buzzword. That's a controversial buzzword, right? And Tallahassee, as I learned very quickly, had a very large element of that, especially at the colleges. So, that was kind of a tricky element because as if you're me and you're working with this group of actors, you start to see things, you start to notice things about, about their lifestyles, about, what they got, going on, and, even stuff that I was participating in myself. I became sexually active as a teenager, as a late teen. And so I wasn't unfamiliar with it. I wasn't unfamiliar with hookup culture and just like the undercurrent of that, and the seediness of that lifestyle, And so because I was familiar with it myself, I recognized it in others. And then there's the whispers, leaving rehearsal, but have you heard about such and such? Or did you know this about such and such? And that starts to take place, right? And my way of handling it, is when you have a bunch of college students collaborating together, like, you're going to get into the personal side of it, the social side of things. People like each other, they don't like each other, they're attracted to each other, they're not attracted to each other, they're engaging with each other, they're not, there's that stuff that became a very real element very quickly, right? And my strategy was, I was just trying to stay professional. I was trying to run a professional machine, operation there, production. And I was trying to stay professional and ethical myself. Anything that I was doing in my personal life, I kept it completely separate. Nobody knew anything about anybody that I was associating with. And most of what I did it out of city, when I would go home on weekends and stuff, But everybody else was doing their stuff in the city. So we were always hearing things about people. So I'm dealing with all of that while we're trying to produce this project, and me and Jared are just we're just trying to get somewhere. And then we go into I think the first inkling that something was amiss with Jared, as far as me learning him as a person and like what his his value system was, his morals, his ethics, what his background was and all that. I saw what was happening as I was just developing a friendship with him and a business relationship with him, a business partnership with him. And it was things that he started to do that made me have to like really look at, like, who is this guy that I have kind of like hitched my star to, I think the first questionable thing was an issue of contracts came up, where we were trying to do contracts for our actors just in case something great happened with the project at some point. We wanted everybody to be protected, and I had assigned him to handle that part, and he was supposed to distribute the contracts to the actors, and so he was handling that, and I was doing my roles, which is writing, directing, shooting, all that stuff. And Jared would be on set sometimes when he wasn't filming his scenes. He would be on set just sometimes when, as a producer, when I was filming, but most of the times he wasn't. And I had other people helping me film, and we had a makeup artist and stuff like that, and everybody's volunteering their time, which I was grateful for. And we were creating a buzz in Tallahassee with this project, and it seems like everybody wanted to be a part of it, which was a cool feeling, but also I don't know if I ever like embraced that part, right? And I was always getting contacted to people wanting to be a part of the project, and it wasn't even out yet, really. We were probably putting out like little clips and snippets and teasers at that time. And YouTube was a brand new thing at that time as well. Again, this is 2005, 2006, 2007. So anyway, 2006 was a contract issue where my actors were calling me saying there's something on the contract that I don't recognize. And I go and look at the versions that they were sent. And I noticed that Jared had added a production company that I'd never heard of on the contracts. And, of course, I confronted him and I was like, what is this, And he explained that was his production company, or his company, his LLC, that he shared with somebody else, one of his friends, his frat brothers or whatever. I mean, I know who it was, but I won't say the name. And I guess the way he explained it was he just didn't think it was a big deal. But it was a moment where we had to kind of clarify our relationship. And first of all, it's like, these are things you have to talk to me about. At the end of the day, this is my project. You know what I mean? I'm the primary production company. I was the only, but then he tried to add his to it. And I was like, things like that have to be discussed. You can't just add them into the contracts and not tell me, like we have to be on the same page as the heads of this production, right? And so that was the first kind of inkling where people were, kind of commenting to me that, Jared's he seems kind of snakish, And so, I took that feedback and I banked it, I wasn't in denial about it. I just banked it because I was like, okay, well, I do know him better than all of you guys do, and so thank you for the feedback, and I'm going to see, if that's true or not. And so we continue on. We got past that hurdle and we continued on. At some point, I think in that same year, 2006, I started noticing that Jared was spending more time with me on set, which was different because he hadn't had that, because again, he had a whole career, right? So wasn't able to be around a lot, and his career required him to be out of town a lot. And I knew that Jared was trying to get his acting career off the ground, and so, there were times where he actually was working with other filmmakers, and he was also trying to get into the modeling thing, and that was starting to take shape for him. And anyway, he started spending more time with me on set, and I also noticed that he wasn't driving his company car anymore, which is what he always drove. And I just felt like something was off with him. And so me and another young lady who was helping, one of our actresses turned producers, we kind of went and kind of talked to Jared about, and kind of confronted him about, hey, are you okay? Is everything okay with you? And then we found out that he admitted to us, we were at his house in Tallahassee, and he admitted to us that he had lost his job, which is what I presumed. That was my speculation. I was like, I think he lost his job. Maybe we should sit down and talk to him, make sure he's okay. So he admitted it, and he got very emotional. That was like the first time I've seen him cry. And he was asking us for support. And I was like, we're definitely going to support you. We got your back. And I think that started a period of like depression for him. And because I think it was the first time in his post-college life that he was experiencing lack of stability, right? Because he had all these, in my purview, he had all these adult things, like things that I was not there yet. He had houses, and he had he had all these adult things, and so I was worried for him, and I was ready to support him, as a friend, because by then I felt like we were friends. And And I did originally feel like he was being like a good friend to me. I did feel that way. So we continued on, and we go into 2007, and we had packaged the first part of us filming the show, My Brother's Keeper, MBK, as we affectionately called it. And we decided, okay, we got a season 1, so we're not going to move into a season 2. And we added to the cast. We did auditions. We added to the cast. I brought on somebody named James Bland, who was already on our cast, that he wanted to get more into the filmmaking side of things. So I let him write, get him let him start writing with me, and or contributing as a writer, and also being a producer with me and Jared. And we just continued on. And I remember that the second season that we did of that show, I remember calling it kind of like tongue-in-cheek, calling it My Brother's Keeper Season 2, Secrets, Lies, and Boundaries, because I just felt like that's what was going on in this experience with all these people. Secrets, lies, and boundaries, right? And the show, in case I didn't say this earlier, was about a group of college kids and their college relationships and the college experience, right? Black college kids. So we were like, it was like